All right, welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about The Letter to the King, which is streaming on Netflix. I kind of just sometimes I just randomly come across shows on Netflix or any other streaming services and just kind of pick them up just to see if they're good or not. And hopefully, it can save people time for watching stuff that they don't want to necessarily watch. So I'm going to start off with kind of my recommend ish category and just kind of give a synopsis. Basically, the story's kind of about a young boy who gets kind of thrust this duty upon him to carry this letter across the kingdom to the king. And he's being chased down as, always. And there's a little chosen one story mixed in there. I would say this show is probably more geared towards a middle school age group, so maybe like I don't know, 10 to 13, rather than even like some young adult stories which are aged more towards like high school. Um, it's all right, I guess. If you're looking for something to watch, it's 6 episodes. They're about 45 to 50 minutes a piece. So it's not terribly long, but it's not something I'm definitely recommending to people to go out and like you have to watch this. And there's definitely a lot of things that I'm like, okay. So I'm gonna go into my pros and cons, and just there'll probably be a little bit of spoilers. So if you don't want anything spoiled for the show, sorry, there'll be a lot of spoilers. Just looking at my notes. So if you don't want anything spoiled, close out of this video and you can go watch and come back. But let's get started on some of those. So let's start off with pros, as always. There's a lot of twists in this show that break away from the traditional fantasy chosen one tropes, which I think is good. It's good to have those kind of twists, and they don't necessarily feel forced. I mean, one of them is kind of obvious, which is there's always the bully character in stories like these, and um, the bully really isn't the bad guy. One of the other kids among his group is kind of like the actual like traitor in the group. So that one's kind of obvious, but also like you almost can't even have the bully character be like the main villain, just because it's been so overdone for so long. Um I think the group of characters has a pretty good dynamic amongst them. Uh Even the side characters seem like they have their place in the story, like all his friends and stuff like that have a place within this tale, and they do a good job of characterizing them quickly without having to kind of go too far into their characters. This kind of gives them a little bit of a character kind of standing in, where it's like there's not a whole lot of depth to them, but they still serve their purpose in the story. In the overall show too, it seems like, I know this show is based on a book, and I haven't read the book, so I don't have the source material to compare it and contrast to, and probably not going to read the book anytime soon. But it seems like they're not afraid to take out characters. I mean, no one main gets taken out, which I think this series continues into other, which I'm not sure how, but um, but they're not afraid to like have characters kind of betray and get taken down, or just like good side characters just completely pulled out of the story. The traditional like mentor character in the story, I feel like is just taken out almost instantly, and I think it gives it a different feel to the story. Um okay, let's go through some of the critiques of this. As I kind of already said, this story's meant for a younger audience, And I think that sometimes those stories can actually be really good. But this one is almost feels like it's held back by not making it a little darker. And that might just be my personal preference. But that's just kind of how I feel about it. I remember one of the notes I ended up writing down when I was watching the first episode is, and this is a spoiler for the first episode. I'm going to go into some end spoilers too. So, I thought the Black Knight was like, wow, this character is really interesting, and I'm really excited to see what he does. Oh, he's dead. Oh, and he's gone. And I just remember writing, like, they kill off the coolest character. Of course they do. Over the course of the show, that choice doesn't bother me as much. I mean, I watched the show over several weeks. I took it pretty slow. But I think it's good because it takes out that tradition. I mean, the mentor character traditionally dies in books like that. So it's just they sped it up so that Turi doesn't have that mentor in the beginning. And so he has to kind of figure it out on his own. Yeah. So let's talk about the ending a little bit. I think this is where it really took its hardest hit. Like, overall, I didn't mind it up until episode 6. I thought there were some good things about it. It wasn't like amazing, but this kind of took it down like a notch for me. So first part of it, Iona, I think is how you pronounce her name, is one of the, knights in training that's with Turi's group in the beginning, and she ends up betraying them in episode 5 or whatever, and then she ends up coming back in episode 6 in the castle, and no one questions how she got into the castle before them, and she gives this whole speech about, like, oh, she's sorry for what she did, and stuff like that, and kind of starts crying. And Turi, being the nice guy, goes up and tries to make her feel better, and so she steals a letter from him. And it's like, she literally just betrayed you a day ago. Why are you trusting her out of the blue again? And why don't you question, it's kind of weird how she got in here before us, since we had to climb through the sewers to even get into the city in the first place. But no one really thinks about that. And then, so this is a pretty big spoiler for the show, but Lavinia ends up being the chosen one, quotation marks. She's the chosen mage that has these powers, and it's kind of made to be feel like it's Turi the whole time, but it's really her, and we find out at the end of episode 5. And so she has this crisis moment in the beginning of the episode where she's like, I don't, this isn't who I am, and then just leaves. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess she's out of the rest of the book, and it's going to be more about the story of how does Turi complete his mission on his own without this chosen magical power. And I think that's actually not a bad way to tell this story. It's just it kind of like takes away from like, okay, well, what's the point of having her then? And then the big bad, we've been setting up the big bad this whole time, who isn't really the big bad. I don't know. He's got some conflicting issues in there, and it's like I feel like that could have been dove into a little bit more, but he dies and releases this dark magic from him. And Lavinia just kind of shows up in the castle, in the king's audience hall, with no explanation at all. There's no scenes that set up her coming in, following them, changing her mind. She's literally out of the entire episode except for the very beginning and the very end. And I'm just like, you can't just do that. Like, you can't just have her show up. Like, it could have been way more interesting if Turi wins by getting the letter to the king, but he loses at the same time by Prince Viridian's plan coming true and Lavinia turning down her chosen one calling. That would have actually been really, I mean, it would have expanded the story. I mean, but if you're planning on doing more books anyway, it would have been kind of interesting to have that be the ending of the first book, and like him and his friends have to retreat. But no, she shows up and she saves the day. Woo. So I think I'm gonna cut it there. I've definitely, this show definitely has some deserved criticism in it. I think they might be doing a season 2. I haven't really looked into that too much yet. I might watch it. It's not, with all my criticisms, I want to say that it's not horrible, but it's definitely, like, I would put it pretty down on a list of things I recommend to people, if it's even on there at all. Like, that's basically like one of those things of like, wow, I'm out of things to watch. Well, have you watched these great shows? Yeah, I've watched all those. Okay, well then, maybe this one can make the cut in like the top 10 or something like that. But if you did like the video, be sure to hit a like down below. Really helps out the channel. And if you do like my content, I really appreciate everyone who subscribes. It really helps me keep pushing out these videos, and I get excited every single time I see a new subscriber. And as always, if you have watched the show, I'm interested to see what people think about it besides me. Go ahead and put comments down below. Let's talk about it a little bit. Let me know what you think. If you have any favorite moments or things that you really didn't like that I didn't get to. So I think that's going to be it for this video, everyone, and I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you.